Alrighty, hello guys. Let's see. Sorry about that. Okay, what's up guys? How's everybody doing? It's been a while since we've done a bit of a case study, so I wanted to kind of fill you guys in on everything that's been going on recently. The reason why I haven't really been doing, I didn't really do one this week or last week, is like if we look at the price action from this week and last week, it's been kind of stuck, right? Like if you go from the beginning of August, which is, I mean, just let's say July 31st. So since July 31st, right, we've been pretty much stuck in this range. And I want to, right, note this, right? We've pretty much been stuck in this range and we've kind of done an internal sweep. And we've kind of just been kind of stuck in the range here, right? Kind of around the equilibrium of the final push down, right? After the mini sweep. And so now it's kind of just a bit, it's just been stalling per se. Like the best way to put it is unclear, because if you guys recall from last week, I'm going to talk about last week's biases, which I apologize that um the recording wasn't, or the audio wasn't recorded, but we could just go ahead and go through everything we said last week, which was we were anticipating for the dual sweep, or the at least one sweep to come in, right? A dual sweep of this reversal type of sweep here, which is, and the reason why it's reversal is because it's a leg down and we're looking for a reversal up. If it was a bullish, let's just say a bullish move, let me spin this. Good. So like if it was, let's say, a bullish range and then we had, right, a sweep like this, then this would be a continuation range, right? That's kind of the gist. So because we have a bearish range, we're looking for a reversal sweep. So we were kind of wanting that final push down, right, to sweep this, right, and then to, in effect, give us that divergence with DXY, I mean with EU, because we had talked about the specific POI here, which we're kind of bouncing off right now, right? Very, very perfectly. And now that we have done that, it becomes a bit awkward, right? And that's just kind of like the gist of this entire session is going to be that it's awkward because we have reacted from here, but we didn't get the sweep that we wanted here. And if we would have gotten that sweep, then I would be a lot more confident that we're gonna, kind of just go up for the remainder of the month, and then that could result in a decent, let's see, could result in a decent um, quarterly candle, right? Which would then imply to the continuation to the upside, because we're kind of right now at the moment, right, kind of solely relying on this candle here, right, as the mechanism to potentially get us higher, right? But will we get this fully? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe, maybe not. But for the most part, that bias is still intact. We kind of do want to see that move to the upside. But now where this conflicts is because DXY didn't sweep, and although EU is technically reacting from that daily POI, we have swept, right, a pretty important low here, right? And that being this. So yes, that is currently in play. Yes, that sweep is there, but we did kind of give a decent reaction. However, the biggest reason why I'm kind of implying that this reaction will sustain itself is because of this. Right? Why? Because that shows us not only is there a bearish POI, but now this kind of confirms the reaction, right, of that POI. We are still technically bullish internally, right? We're from a low, high, retracement, solidification, disruption. So because we have that disruption in place, it's very safe, in my opinion, to want to, let's say, trade this here. This is not the worst idea ever, right? Like it's not necessarily bad to look for this idea. And but the only problem now with that is if you begin to zoom in, the only real POI here, which I actually didn't notice until just now, I actually didn't think there was any POIs, is that inefficiency there. right? And the fact that there is a buy to sell here, but that buy to sell did not tap, right? And so yes, we're reacting from there, but there is an internal sweep here. So what does that internal sweep mean? It's in favor of the bearish bias, but I'm not gonna let these mini equal highs kind of throw me off, right? All I know is that we have, right, that disruption off of the daily POI, H1 disruption off of daily POI, which I'm gonna do this, right? And so because of that, let's see if the solidify point shows anything, right? So we do have a level 3. So this is right now in alignment, a level 3 to a level 2. It is now in alignment with this. So that could mean something, but for the most part, right, the only thing that's throwing me off with that bearish bias is the fact that dollar did not sweep that significant low here, right? That significant low, which is the low that we had talked about, because I would like to take that liquidity before we go higher. And so now if we begin to zoom in a little bit more, right, let's not focus on that. Let's say this, right? The immediate bearish range. If we were to assume the continuation for the bearish range, it's like looking like like a decent sweep to the downside. Like this looks relatively decent. Why? Because we have the bearish sweep, we have a dual sweep, the transition, and we have a high-low retracement. So this could very well like continue lower, and that would kind of hurt that initial reaction with the bearish move to EU, right? So I want to see this EU move play out, but just as of now, it really looks like dollar wants to complete this, right? And so how do we then play this? Well, if I'm looking at this from the internal sweep POV, right? And let's say we have, okay, you guys can see that this is like the final push up and then the final leg up that's broken through. So if I wanted to see this continue lower, I would need to see a decent move to the downside here. Why? Because then that would imply a sweep that aligns with the internal direction, right? Or let's say even worse, right? If this was to be a high confidence scenario for me, I would want to see something like that, something fast that sweeps and then gives a impulsive move to the downside, and that would then imply that we go lower, and that would imply that EU would go higher, right? But obviously, the invalidation to this setup is the break of this high, right? If this is to just climb up here, okay, now we're in alignment with this being the reaction of the daily POI, right? Because it can really go both ways. So it really just depends on what this internal range is going to do over the span of now to, let's say, London session. Right, London session, we'll probably see a move during London session today. And then pretty much see whether we're going to align the bearish POI with the disruption internally, and then with the internal of that then being in alignment. And then that would just mean that we're looking for continuations, because just because we're kind of in the discount of, let's say, low to high, we're in a discount, that doesn't mean that we're going to miss out the entire scenario. Maybe you might miss this move, but this is the transition. And we have to also acknowledge what the transition means. And that then ties in to us continuing lower, which is part of the overall transition. You know what I mean? Because the POI has reacted, breakthrough. So then the natural next target is here. So then that just gives us a bias to play off of for the next couple of weeks. Right? So bias is a bit conflicting, but I don't think it's a lost cause. I do think we're going to get some type of decent scenario tonight/tomorrow morning, and then we just kind of go from there. Right? Same thing goes with GU. GU looks a little bit more bearish than EU looks bullish from the internal POV, but there really is nothing that this is bouncing from. So the problem here is, I did have this marked out, but the problem here is now that if we were to actually focus just on a direction, we could easily react here, and then this could align to go for these highs. And then why is that important? Because we're potentially still seeing the continuation of this sweep. And if this sweep is to continue, then that means we're to have a reaction in the discount here, which would then lead us into 365. And if that's the case, then obviously like it conflicts our bias. So then we're gonna have to choose like which one looks cleaner. Does the bullish move to GU look cleaner than the bearish move to EU based on the reactions that we're gonna see over the next day or so? Right? And so that's gonna kind of be a decision that's gonna have to be made, right? So this one still looks bullish more than it looks bearish. What would invalidate that bullish bias? What we do when we start to come here, right? Is this going to be an impulsive move? If it's an impulsive move and it starts to recover slowly, okay, then we can assume the disruption, high, low, retracement, continuation. Right? That would be pretty much the only thing that invalidates that. But just from the overall perspective, it does look still bullish. If this sweeps quickly and then gives a transition, then I'm bullish. Okay. Next, UCAD. This one's an interesting one. I haven't been looking at this one too much. Just because we reacted from here, sure. But you guys know what we say about POIs. If the POI doesn't touch the POI and then reacts, then we're no longer looking for that bearish bias. So if we're looking at this from a low, high retracement, then if dollars to convert, then we could probably lean towards this being bullish. Yeah. Especially because we failed to break this low. Okay. You sure I don't look at this one too much. AU, this one's still, I mean, need to mark this out. This is important. This is still moving in our desired direction, right? So I think the thing with AU and NU, it's going to be very dependent on, oh, I saw this one. I'm so mad I didn't actually get this one. But the problem with these is I think they're really going to move based on what dollar is saying. And if you look at this, we're kind of now completing this sweep here. Why? Because we have the sweep here, we have the bearish move to the downside on a sweep, on a dual sweep, right? And the final bullish range has been taken, right? I don't know if this swept or not. That's why I'm saying that. So now, like, this is all pointing towards the downside. And now it's just a matter of finding the timing, which means that this one, because it's NU and AU, right? If we're to see these kind of give some type of reaction or in some type of transition, right? Any type of sweep internally, then I would be very, very keen on wanting to take this, right? Like, let's say we have a move, transition, downside. I would love that. Why? Because then we're also coming into the discount of the solidified newly formed range. Right? NU. This one is currently tapping here. I'm a little salty I didn't get this. This would have been a great move. But this one's also interesting. I think that if, let's say AU and NU, what happens here, if there's a divergence or not, depending on that plus a transition, I think we can get some good downside. And then obviously if our DXY isn't aligned, then that would support the bias. Other than that, I think gold is the only other interesting one. This one I've been eyeing for the past couple of days. I don't know if I brought up this POI here, but I do have some markups for that. Let me show you guys. This is one I've been eyeing for a while. Let me see. Okay, so this is the daily on the 11th, 2 days ago, Tuesday. And this is where it becomes important because we've seen a rally, but I just don't think this is convincing enough. I don't think that this is convincing enough to give us that full move that we're kind of looking for, because if we're looking from the bias POV, then this is bearish. You know what I mean? Like, especially if we compare it now, obviously we now see the reaction. We'll come back into that. But this isn't convincing because this is just a CBOS. And if this is just a CBOS and then we have the reaction from the bullish POI here, then we have a sweep that's to the downside, right? To at least get us minimum back to the equilibrium-ish, right? And if we're also looking at this from bias POV, we have a break of structure and we have potentially another leg to the downside. Why am I not relying too much on this? Because you guys know that the alignment, right, is what gives you, right, the supporting bias to the external. So if the external is bullish, but there's no sign of bullishness in the internal, then there's not really any reason to buy, right? But because we are intraday scalpers, this move is not a move we're going to catch. This type of big, massive swing, if you're an intraday scalper, by definition, that you just won't be able to catch its entire move. This is just to give you a bias. So the framework would then be that the moves that we're looking to trade are internally here. So that is technically bearish. So we have a bearish leg and then we have a bearish alignment, and we can aim for the bearish target, right? That brings us internally. As you can see, we're kind of reacting very strongly now, especially after today's move. And I'm very, very interested now, like in the short side here. Like I would love to see, let's just say, some type of retracement after a solidification. So obviously this is where the high to the low started, but this is not solidified yet because a high to a low hasn't been broken. So if we are to see solidification, which would technically be the break of here, potentially here on the M5. Yeah, if we were to break, let's say, this internal leg, then we have solidification. And then that means that any type of move transition here is high probability in my eyes. Why? Because of what has been happening as we're touching the POI. Obviously, right, when we're looking at this POI, internally we have to be bullish in order to reach the POI. You have low, high retracement, and then came this move here, right? The first internal sweep, right? And now the problem is this, right? Why? Because let's zoom in. This is not a bearish leg. This is a bullish leg. If you guys can see, it swept the low before it swept the high. So because it swept the low, then went into the high, then I can't trade the transition here expecting it to be a reversal because the trend internally is still bullish. Yes, we have a reaction. Yes, we have a move to the upside. But if, let's say, this was to have reached the high and then the low, okay, if we have then the transition, that's different, right? But I think it's important to note here that we do have that bullish move. And then I did note that we completed order flow, right, based on the internal leg, retracement, fulfillment of order flow. So once we have the fulfillment done, I was actually looking for an opportunity here. If I'm being honest with you, I was looking for, if I'm being 100% honest, I was looking for the sell here. But we didn't get that far, unfortunately. We kind of just gave minor moves to the upside. But now that this reversal sweep has been completed, it has created a fully confirmed bearish leg, and we've reacted here. So because we've reacted here, I'm expecting the continuation, right? So I just need the solidification and I need a transition, any type of setup, and then I'm pretty bearish here, you know? Right, so this is, I think, the more interesting one. I think this one has a lot of potential, especially then if dollar fulfills the, or if dollar becomes aligned with that bullish bias we're talking about, where let's say we get like a sweep and then it invalidates this bearish potential sweep, right? Which is only viable really because we have a big bearish move. But if that is to fail, or once that is to kind of align, let's say back to a bullish sense, then I think we have good opportunities with gold, EU, and then AUNU, right? But obviously, with more data, we can get more. We could get more moves, and if we get more moves, and depending on the moves, then we can get different sequences to occur, which could then be forms of disruption or forms of alignment that we just don't have right now. So yeah, guys, with that being said, no trades for me this week. But if we do get those moves, I think we can get some decent moves today and tomorrow. So yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.